you set the bill pay. Now that you have to be careful on, because the day you set the bill pay is not the day that your lender gets the money.
May you always find your way to higher ground. May you always keep your head held up high. Pretty little thing, you're a diamond in the rough.
Grand Rising. I don't know what is going on at my feet, but we're gonna do yoga. It's a little bit before 7. I kept hitting snooze, but we're gonna get the yoga done. We're gonna get in the bath. I might do my nails. I'm trying to get out of this door by 8:25. You looking kind of fluffy there, Justice. You looking fluffy. Tub. I put on some Carolina Herrera. I'll layer it. I'll put on more after I get dressed, but I just wanted to enjoy it. Not gonna do my nails. I'm gonna try to do my makeup at 7:53. I made oatmeal. Let me show you what I got going on here. So here is the bed of berries that I'm gonna put the oatmeal in. The oatmeal, I made a double serving. I'm gonna put some in the fridge. So tomorrow I can have it and just nuke it because I gotta go to Connecticut tomorrow. So it's gonna be a tight morning. Planning ahead. Out the door a few minutes later than I wanted to be, but that's okay. I got my makeup on. I had to go to the restroom. I'm wearing a onesie. Can you guys see that? It's a Donna Karen. I'll show you when I get to the office. But I wanted to test it out, getting in and out of it before I left the house. I don't know why, because I wasn't gonna have time to change. But it's a good thing I did the yoga, because I'm gonna need to be bendy getting in and out of this. We're out the door though. Let's make it happen. All right, here's my outfit. You can see my full onesie. And there's the bump. This is, what are we, 8 weeks? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 weeks, 4 days. Yeah. Hi, girls. Did you miss me today? Yeah. Were you guys good girls? Were you good girls? You still rocking the curls, Liberty? Are you gonna let me brush you? I see a spot that needs to be brushed. All right. I'm home, as you can see by the girls. So today was apparently National Pumpkin Day. Did you guys know there was such a thing? There is. So they gave out free pumpkins at work, little tiny ones, which gave me a little inspo. So remember I said I had the 2 runners. One would go on the sideboard until the middle of November, and then I would switch it to fall. Before Thanksgiving, I changed my mind. Well, I'm testing it out. Let me know what you think. So I put it here. It fits. And I put the 2 little pumpkins that I got from Target there. And this is one of the ones that they gave out at work today. Happy fall. A little cute gourd. And then there's the other one. Never mind the cords. That cord thing drives me crazy. There is a casing for it. I have to find it. It's somewhere here like I had in the old place. And then I'll just paint it to match the wall and tack it down. So just ignore the cord for now. I haven't done it yet because I want to get a shelf unit that doesn't sit on the floor, that sits up. And then I can put those baskets underneath like this way, the long way, I guess. And then I can also put shoes there because right now, like you can see Cheyenne's shoes. She leaves her house shoes here for, ignore the powder on my foot. She leaves her house shoes here for when she comes to visit. And we just like, when you come in, when visitors come in, they leave their shoes here. So I would just like a little tuck under. Anyway, that's not happening this year because we're saving money. But let me know what you think of this, the pumpkins under the TV. I think it's kind of cute. Do you like it, Justice? Maybe not. I'm watching these girls. They just had twins. So she had the baby. She had the twins. And she's also breastfeeding. I thought that was so cool. Like she pumped before so they both could breastfeed. They are Allie and Sam if you're interested in watching them. A married couple who they did embryo transfer with 2 embryos. They ended up with 2 boys. Anyway. Okay. Thoughts, let me know down below. Hello, party people. Okay, where are you with your spreadsheet? Did you get your spreadsheet? Did you get all your bills written down? Let me know if you guys want me to show you an example. I can show you some of my old ones, but basically you just want to put everything down. And I say it's easier in a spreadsheet because you can sort or filter by different fields, right? Like due date, it's important. So I usually do mine. You can do it alphabetical. It really just depends. I usually do mine in alphabetical order. And then the next thing, like for credit cards on there, I'll do it by interest rate. So obviously if it has a higher interest rate, you want to pay those down sooner, right? Because otherwise you're going to pay more interest over time. So say if you have a card that has like 18% interest and you have a card that has a 9% interest, you want to pay down the 18% faster. So more than the minimum. And it'll usually tell you like inside of the disclosure, if you get a paper, I think it does it online too. You just have to download it, but it'll tell you like, if you only pay the minimum, it'll take X amount of years to pay this off. But if you pay this much, it'll do more. So those, when you have the money, you want to put extra money on there, right? Like don't not eat for it. It's not worth it. But I don't know, just say for whatever reason, you have an extra $50. It's your birthday. Somebody gives you that, put that $50 toward that credit card. Because basically you're paying yourself. Because in the long run, you'll have given the credit card company less money in interest. Does that make sense? Same thing for like your student loans. Like I have private loans and I think they're at like 7%. And then I have the FFELP loans, which are at 3%. So for the FFELP, I just applied for a medical hardship, which is true because I had a bunch of medical expenses, right? That's the only thing that is a requirement. And I don't have a job where I get overtime. So it's not like I can say, oh, I'm going to work X amount of hours. Like my check is the same every single month. Sometimes there's an extra check. I've mentioned like December is going to be an extra check, meaning there's 3 checks and that last one, they don't take any deductions out of. So for me, I usually buckle down always at the end of the year anyway, because going into the new year, so let me see if I can make this make sense. Going into the new year, my first check is always less than what my last check was for the year before. Not because my pay rate changed, but because I have to start paying into Social Security again. Because of the way that I'm paid, by the time I get my bonus in March, that bonus pays all my Social Security for the rest of the year. So every check after that is higher because they're not deducting my Social Security, if that makes sense. It's not a big difference, but it's a difference. Like, you know, when you know exactly what your check is when you're a salary person and then you got like $58 missing, you notice it. So, yeah, so I always just plan for that ahead. But the good thing is I also do an FSA, which is, oh my God, something savings account. I can't think of what the F is. Hey, Google, what does FSA stand for?
On the website healthcare.gov, they say, a flexible spending account, also known as a flexible spending
Thanks, Google.
is a special account you put money into that you use to pay for certain out-of-pocket healthcare costs. Do you want a little more context?
No, thank you. So flexible spending account.
Okay.
So they take it out pre-tax, but they load the card. Like for us, we get it on a credit card. They load the card for January. So I think the maximum that I'm allowed to put on my card is $2,800. So I'm going to pay for it all of 2023 out of every check. Let's just say it's $50 out of every check to get to that $2,800. But at the beginning of the year, I have access to all of that $2,800. So that's important if you're doing fertility treatments, because you have that money basically in your pocket to spend, even though you haven't been. Now, if you lose your job, I don't know, you might have to pay it back, or you might not. They might do an accrual, but that's a whole other thing. Let's not talk that up. We're going to keep our jobs. We're going to use our FSA. Some companies also have an HSA, which is a healthcare spending account. Ours is just flex, so it includes healthcare, and it also includes our commuter benefit. So I use that to pay, like, for my subway card pre-tax. And I used to always get like a monthly card pre-pandemic, but because we're in the pandemic, like, I'm not riding the subway every day. So now instead of doing time, I do value, and then I can budget that dollar amount for that. It's not a huge savings, but there is a savings. And I just feel like, especially with everything that's going on in the world, like, why not get all the savings that you can, right? So, what was I saying? Medical hardship. So I did the medical hardship on my flex, and then, on my student loans. And I am not eligible for the rebate that Biden is getting, that they're fighting him about, because there's an income cap. So if you're in that same situation, you might want to see if you can get a hardship, medical hardship, financial hardship. If you've had like an economic change, like a loss in income, somebody in the household has lost income, you just have to demonstrate that has actually happened, right? And so you could qualify for that. So I think I want to say like a 6-month hardship, so which is good, because I feel like I'll be on the good foot next year by the time I get my raise and my bonus. I just have to kind of dig myself out of the hole. It's not a ridiculous hole, but it's a hole. So I'm just looking for ways to like save money. So after you line those up on your spreadsheet, you figure out what your interest rate is for each of them. What has the highest interest rate? What has the highest balance? So highest balance, highest interest rate, ding, 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 that needs your attention first and foremost, right? As far as paying it down. If you have a high balance and a low interest rate, for the time being, my opinion, just you pay what your minimum is and try not to charge on it. But if you have to use any card to charge, use the one with the lowest interest rate. Now, I talked a little bit yesterday about one, you want to focus on being solvent before you focus on just your credit report. But if you are focused on your credit report, one of the big factors of your FICO score is utilization. Meaning, if you have a credit card that has a $10,000 limit and you're only using 2%, you have, what is that? Oh my God. I'm going to do the math in reverse. I think you have a 20% utilization. FICO likes for your utilization, it's very, they like it to be at least 10. They love it if it's 3% or less, right? So just say if you had $1, let's make it easy for my math brain. I'm tired. If you had $1, if you're only charged 3% on that card, you're only carrying 3% over. There's a trick to that though, right? Because it's what's reported. It's not what's happening all month long. So I also add on my spreadsheet for my credit card the reporting date on the credit report. And sometimes they're different. Like TransUnion, I feel like TransUnion always reports last, at least for me. Experian is right away and Equifax is in the middle. So those are your three major credit bureaus. Hopefully you guys already requested your credit report. But you need to find out when the cutoff is, right? So when is your due date? It's not the same day as your reporting date. So for example, my Barclays card, my due date is March. It's the 5th of every month. And the reporting date is the 8th. So it's like really quick if I pay it by the 5th. But it's also, if I'm late, it's going to get reported as late. Well, if it's a 30-day late. If it's just late for that month, they don't report it out, right? So, however, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have anything that's really delayed. My Amex was. So like my Amex payment, and I enrolled in autopay. I know one of you guys was saying autopay will get you in trouble. It will. You got to pay attention. That's why I recommend things like mint.com. And if you're low on cash, cut off your autopay. That's where you can rely on your spreadsheet, because you don't want to get hit with the autopay, not have the money. So then you have an NSF fee and you have a late fee now, right? Just take the late fee and pay it later. Do you know what I mean? Instead of the two charges, because sometimes that could be up to $80 between the two of them, depending on your the financial institution. So my point. So if my Amex credit card was due on the 19th, they didn't report till the 1st. So I can pay that all down on the 19th, but then that means I cannot use that Amex card till after it posts so that I get credit for lowering my utilization, right? If you pay it down and you start spending on it right away, one, it looks like you're living off your credit cards, which you might be. So that's what I'm saying. If you need to live off of it, then don't worry about your credit score and what your credit report. Like, no shame. There's a lot of stuff going on. But if you're trying to bump your numbers up, say you're trying to make a purchase, say you're trying to get a credit card to help finance the rest of this debt, you know what I mean? You want to do a consolidation or whatever. Then you want to be very strategic on that. So you pay down that credit card and then you do not use it again until that limit, that new lower limit reports. And then you have, more time to now you can reuse the card again, but then pay it down. So you want to be very mindful of like what you're spending versus what's coming in. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to inundate you guys. We're just going to do little bites daily, but I want to hear your feedback. The app that I use for my bills and income is mint.com. Now, I know some of you guys are suspicious, and I don't blame you, because mint.com, it's encrypted, but they do have access to your bank account, right? So if you have a direct deposit, they can see when your checks come in, and then you give them access to encrypted access. They can't just log in for you. Encrypted access to all of your accounts, so all of your credit cards, Con Edison, all of that, and it pulls in all that data. And on the left hand side, it has like a nice little thing of like, here's your assets, here's your 401k, all of your stock plans are in there. It'll show you like a snapshot of what those are, but then it'll also remind you when things are due. Pay attention to your due dates, because sometimes your due date, or sometimes your auto pay date is earlier than your due date. Like that was the case for my Amex. It was like 5 days before my due date. So that's also why I'm saying sometimes it's good to cancel the auto debits, but you got to stay on top of it, because you don't want to get dinged because like you're used to it going. Because I've done that before, and then like a card didn't get paid because I took it off auto pay and I forgot. So you have to be like meticulous about it. And it doesn't, like, you don't have to be obsessive, but I would just say if you check once a week, depending on how organized you are, like maybe you do that Sunday morning, you read the newspaper, and then you go through what your finances are, like what bills have come in, what bills have to go out. And then you want to make sure you pay it by the due date, and not necessarily what the auto pay date is, because they usually do it a little bit early just to give you a bit of a buffer. Also, what I do for some of instead of using the finance company's payment, let me say this right. My bank has bill pay, my credit union. So sometimes I'll go into bill pay and send the money over to Amex or whatever else. That way there's no way for it to bounce, right? Because my bank is not going to try to make a payment that if there's not enough money there. Whereas auto pay, if you use the financial institution that you're trying to pay or lender, if you use their auto pay, you'll get an NSF. So if like money is kind of tight and your bank doesn't charge you for bill pay, that's another way to do it. And you set the bill pay. Now that you have to be careful on, because the day you set the bill pay is not the day that your lender gets the money, or your creditor, however you want to call it, financial institution. So like when I put mine in, like today is the 26th. If I put in the 26th, pay this bill, it'll say this bill's not going to get there until this date. So you want to calculate that so you're not late if you're trying not to be late. Yeah. So that is kind of that. You want to get off of the wheel of like, okay, I pay this credit card down and I'm using it right away. Then it doesn't reflect on your credit card. You want to get credit for paying that down and for managing your utilization. It's a very weird thing. Credit is a very weird thing. You have to look like you don't need it and they give you more. If you look like you're using it all up, they're like, oh, you're a risk, which they just have data that shows that. And if you're, depending on where you live, depending on what you look like, the system is not set up for you, but you can game the system because it is numbers and data. So you just have to understand like what the system is looking for. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know your questions. Let me know your thoughts. If there's anything in particular that you're working on or you have a question about, let's chat about it. I will say I want to share the story of renegotiating debt. So I had the credit card from Actors Federal Credit Union. It was $20,000. I paid for my donors admin fees on that card. And I was making the payments just fine, right? So that was 2020. And then we're in 2022. So this year I missed payments because I went to Braverman and I had to pay out of pocket. It was, oh my God, around $4,000 because I had to pay Braverman and then I had to pay the reprocess fee, right? And so I'm not eligible for overtime. So my check is my check is my check. So if I spend $4,000 on Braverman and reprocess, that means I'm short $4,000 for something else. So I missed those credit card payments. So it got to the point where it was like the lady was calling me all the time. It's a credit union. So it's like Kelly is calling me and like, hey, what's going on? And I explained it to her. I asked her if I could restructure it because sometimes they'll like defer your payments for you, but she didn't want to do that at first. Long story long, last month we finally, she was like, well, why did you miss it? And I explained to her, I am not eligible for overtime. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to make this up. Because she was like, it's, you're still 60 days behind. It's going to continue to be, I'm going to keep making payments, but it's going to continue to be 60 days behind. So then she was like, are you going to file for bankruptcy? Blah, blah. I was like, no, it's like, I think I owe $17,000. Why would I file for bankruptcy for $17,000? And she was like, and I was like, I don't think you're supposed to give me legal advice. She was like, oh, it was just if, what I would do. I said, I don't want any unsolicited advice. And you have legal recourse as well. So I'm not advising you of your legal rights. And so finally, she was like, well, what exactly happened? So I said, I had a medical hardship. So she was like, can you send me proof? I sent her in my Braverman receipt, my reprocess receipt, and my FET, because this was like, when did I pay for the FET? I think I paid for it in August. Might have been end of July. Because remember the FET got canceled and then, well, not canceled, it got delayed because I had ovulated. So I showed her all of that, right? And then they approved me for a loan. So they closed out their credit card, paid it off. That's what it looks like on my credit report, even though it was late. So now it's current and it's fully paid. And now I have this new loan that I just pay for every month. So sometimes if you can talk with the people, I know it depends on the relationship. And if it's your original creditor, do not talk to debt collectors because that will just get you into trouble. Don't talk to them on the phone. Put everything in writing. But if it's your original creditor, try to negotiate with them. I was always polite to her. I wasn't like angry or whatever. I always asked her how she was doing, like what's going on. Keep it civil because I know sometimes, well, at least when I was younger, I would get tense with creditors and debt collectors and just, and that is not productive. Some of those people are a little crazy. They get off on yelling, so you're just giving them what they want. Don't get into that. At the end of the day, they want something. The company they work for wants something, whether or not the person on the phone is with that or not. But you got to be a special person to be a debt collector. So yeah, sometimes you can negotiate with people and just say like, hey, this is what's going on if they want to work with you. Obviously, you don't want anything. Try to stay out of court. You don't want to be in court. You don't want to be filing bankruptcy like for small amounts of, because that stays on your credit. And some, like if you file for bankruptcy, American Express will never give you a card. Not to say that that's the end all be all, but that in my mind, I'm always like, I want my American Express back. But there are some companies that just won't fuck with you once you have filed for bankruptcy. Not everybody has that. I mean, you can still buy a house and all that. It's just depends on where you are and what your, what your goals are. And so if you don't have a bunch of assets for people to come off after in a judgment, it's not even really worth it to file for bankruptcy. You know what I mean? Like if you're renting and you don't have any like, I don't know, you're an hourly employee and you can move to another, like it's not worth it. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, I had to file for all these credit cards. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to have to wait. So sometimes we do it just for the mental clarity of it, but girl, find your peace, be focused. So yeah. The other thing I just thought of, when a credit card is closed and you have an outstanding balance, your utilization is 100%. Sometimes it goes over because you're using more credit than you have access to, right? Remember I talked about the utilization. It's 3% if you use 3 cents and your limit is $1. Well, when your card is closed, your limit is now 0. And it's whatever it was. So mine was basically upside down, right? Because I had a closed card. So I had 0 limit and I had $17,000 that I still owed on the card. So as soon as that card closed, as soon as that card was paid in full, like when they closed it paid in full, my credit score went up, right? Because now I wasn't upside down on that credit card. So that's how important utilization is. It's either 30 or 35%. I'll get the numbers together. I don't want to go too much into the credit reports just yet. I'm giving you bite-sized pieces and then we'll go hardcore because I just want to make sure everybody is like on an even playing field and understanding like the report is not the end all be all. You being solvent, sane, and not being harassed. That's the first part. And it was to the point, I want to talk about this because it wasn't even that I was being harassed. Like I was so mentally burdened by it earlier this year that I was very, very depressed because I was like, I wanted to pay for this, but then I also knew, what I deemed was important, part of my value, my credit score was tanking. And so I was just really, really depressed. And when I talked to my mom was like, girl, get it together. Like that is, nobody sees your credit report when you're walking around and you're putting too much of your identity into that. So, hopefully none of you guys are doing that, but there is shame associated with it. And I want us just to be able to talk about it and to get through it. I remember I went to this business class in Vegas in 2017 and they were always like, you need one rich friend or they said one rich white friend, to help guide you through it. I'm not your rich white friend, because I'm telling you I'm paycheck to paycheck, but I will just say I'm a high income earner and I'm making my way back. And so there might be some things that I know that I can teach you and then you can level up that way. Because there's moves to this and I don't want you to feel harassed. I don't want you to feel ashamed. I don't want you to feel stressed. We're going to get through this together. And now is the time to do it because it's going to get worse before it gets better with everything that's going on with the economy. So I want us all to be good. And for those of you who are on a fertility journey, I want to set you up for success so that you can fund your fertility journey. Because at the end of the day, get your baby, sis. Get your baby. You know what I'm saying? When I have my baby at home, I'm not going to be worried about my credit score. It can rebound because I know I'll have money coming in, right? But like this time, I knew I couldn't get back. So I could have just paid all my bills on time and waited till next year when I got my bonus and tried at 52 to have an IVF, but it was like, that's not what I wanted to do. I won't say you need one rich friend, but one knowledgeable friend. How about that? I'll be a knowledgeable friend and we'll figure this out together. All right. Oh my God, I've been talking for 21 minutes. Let me get out of here. I gotta undo the dishwasher and all that stuff and get myself to bed. But I love you guys. Hopefully all that makes sense. Leave your questions down below. I love you. Bye.